I actually had a prospect recently tell me that they were afraid to put advanced security on their systems because they didn't want to know what might be in there.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 432 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin. Good morning, Donna.
Morning, David. I'm in my own office.
I know, you're finally back from all your wanderings.
Yeah. At least for now. Who knows where I'll go next?
I don't even know that you know where you'll go next.
I do not at this point.
So today we're going to be talking about the first OCR ransomware settlement ever. Yeah. So, made history this week.
Yeah. After all of the time where, ransomware is not a data breach. I mean, I believed it too, but now you can't even make that argument anymore with the double extortion.
No, not at all. So lots of interesting stuff in this one too. Well, we always cover the settlements anyway, so definitely worth listening to what we have to say today about what comes out.
As opposed to other days when it's not worth it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, as opposed to other days. Absolutely.
Well, alrighty then.
So before we jump into that, I do want to say, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it out. Help us spread the word. And I do want to say a personal shout out to George. Thank you for the care package from Ireland. I appreciate it.
Yes, George. You always win us over with your care packages, especially when it's really good candy.
Yeah, it's like whiskey infused chocolate.
And you know that does not upset me at all. Yeah.
That's right. So definitely thanks, George. Appreciate that. And I did send him a thank you, and his reply was, "Thank you for what you do, whatever that is."
See, we can't explain it either, so it's good to know that you can't either.
Yeah. It's like, what is he doing?
Tell me again what you just said. What are you doing with yourself?
Yeah, my job duties are secret. Sometimes I don't even know.
I like it. I don't even know what I'm doing.
I just show up.
Well, a lot of times I do. They're like, just get there and answer the questions. Okay.
Yeah. just make people laugh. I could do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So let's dive into it. First thing, HIPAA briefs. Now, this is something that's near and dear to your heart. The question is, do business associates have to worry about the breach notification rule?
Yes, you do. God, the number of times that we vet these vendors and they say, we'll ask them about, are you prepared to make breach notifications? Well, no, we don't have to do that. Wrong. And this is not the first time we've had to have that conversation, and probably not the last, but anytime a business associate is not prepared for what it means to make a notification, you don't get to just always notify your clients and then walk away. You got so many other things, and particularly if you go to report a breach, it says, are you a business associate reporting it or a covered entity? That's the first clue that you might need to know how to do it. Promise, I wouldn't make this stuff up just to torture you. There are some things, yes, but not this one.
So definitely worth looking at your business associate agreements, because you may be signing something that says you will be doing this.
Well, and even if it's not in your business associate agreement, they have the ability to turn around and tell you you're going to make the notifications, because guess what? They don't want their name on something that you caused.
Yeah, that's a good point. That you
Yes.
suffer all the brand damage,
Well,
the brain damage.
then they get the call of, why did you hire these people? So, and I could tell you from people that have gone through this, the phone calls are brutal once these notifications go out.
Yeah.
And, just the cost of it. And you need to know all the different elements that you could be asked to pay for, even if you're not asked to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know how that works. And you have to know how to document evaluations of potential data breaches.
So that is a great segue into our first OCR ransomware settlement, because it is a data breach.
It is. Ransomware is a data breach. And guess what, David?
What's that?
It's with a business associate.
Oh,
So it's funny how that all ties back together.
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, so let's take a look at this one. This happened in Massachusetts. Massachusetts.
Really? Can you say Worcestershire?
Mass. It's in Mass. It happened in Mass.
M.A. Not M.A.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. So this is Doctors Management Services. They are headquartered in M.A.
I want to hear you say it.
Massachusetts. I had to concentrate, but I got it. This business associate has the honor, though, of being the first published settlement after a ransomware attack on their network, and that it is also with a business associate only. I don't know, makes it more interesting to me that this is the one that they picked, and they released it at the end of Cybersecurity Awareness Month to tie it back into cybersecurity awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what had happened, just so that we get right off the bat why this one digs so deep and why they picked this one.
All right.
Is on April 22nd, 2019. Okay, so pre-COVID, but our messages were all the same back then as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
OCR opened an investigation based on a breach notification that, because they do practice management stuff, credentialing, revenue cycle management, all of that kind of stuff. And
so to your point, the business associate filed the breach report.
yes.
All right.
And it had 206,695 individuals.
Eesh.
Yeah. And they got infected with Gan Crab. You remember them?
Mm-hmm.
As always, there's a typos and stuff that makes it work. Gan Crab ransomware. The thing that is the problem is not just that they got hit by ransomware, and I think they got selected, unfortunately, because this was in the time where you should have been figuring this out. And by now, you definitely need to know that if you're not looking, these people lurk. We talked about lurk time. So the initial unauthorized access to the network was April 1st, 2017.
Wow.
So they reported a breach on April 2019, 2 years later. But it's not because they held on to it for 2 years. It's because they didn't notice until December 24th, 2018. What day would that be, David?
Christmas Eve.
What do we say about the holidays?
Great time for ransomware.
Exactly.
You should definitely send it out to all the people that you love as a gift.
Yeah, so can you imagine it's Christmas Eve 2018, and either you're not aware that this has happened and you're going to come into work and find it when it's had plenty of time to work, or this is what you learn right before the first big meal of the holiday weekend.
Mm-hmm. Well, it started in April, right? So April Fool's Day, actually, is when it started. So you and I both talk about this often, that when you look at any ransomware, the ransomware piece of it is always the last part
Yep.
So it's not like I just got hit by ransomware. It's like, no, you've been hit by a bunch of stuff. Ransomware is just the bomb they set off on the way out.
Right. Exactly.
So the bomb they set off on the way out was December 24th, Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not when they got breached. That's when they finally noticed it.
Yeah, and they're not mentioning what else occurred during them, but a lot of things could have occurred.
Yeah, but it is interesting because what happened that caused it to be that day. I don't know. Maybe it's just happenstance. But anyway, still, the thing to look at is the fact that it was a year and a half or something like that.
Yeah.
So the dwell time from the time they got breached to the time they realized they were breached, a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are horrible scenarios. You do not want to have that happening. But it is, this is why we tell you, this is the worst place to be, is to have been infiltrated that long, because there's no way for forensics to figure out everything they could have done.
Mm-hmm. I actually had a prospect recently tell me that they were afraid to put advanced security on their systems because they didn't want to know what might be in there.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I was like, that's classic. Like, I don't know that I've ever heard that one.
I know. I don't want to know.
Yeah. Just, okay.
Just keep driving the car till it quits, I guess.
Yeah. Don't tell me that we're about to turn a curve off the cliff. I'd just rather not know. It takes all the fun out of it.
Yeah. Just let me go. Wow. Wow.
I know.
I hadn't really thought about that one. So, but they learn about it, and this is how it often happens. You learn you've been infiltrated when the ransomware comes. So that year and a half is probably why they bubbled to the top of, this is the time to do a ransomware settlement. Mm-hmm. And this is not a huge company. If you go to their website, it's a small family-owned business. So it could be any of us. And again, you're a victim, but if you haven't done anything in this day and age to protect yourself, then you're not so much. It's kind of like saying, yeah, I parked my car right downtown in downtown Atlanta, didn't lock it, and left my laptop and my cell phone right there for everybody to see. And if it gets stolen, that's on me.
Yeah, it's like you're a victim, but you also participated in your own victimhood.
Yeah, I set it up. I was just screaming, steal me.
Yeah, like I left the keys in the car.
Yeah. It's like everything's sitting there, the window's down. I'm trying for people to steal it, and they don't, is the only thing I can hope for. Mm-hmm. But my insurance company, they'll ask you, did you lock your car? Did you, and cybersecurity is no different anymore. Mm-hmm. So that is hard for me. Now, if you've seen the error in your ways and you're really ready to take this seriously, but sometimes people aren't. But if you're on this 3-year corrective action plan and you stroked a check for $100,000, you're probably a little bit more serious about it than most people. So a 3-year corrective action plan.
Ooh.
That's longer than usual.
Yeah, let's max it out.
So let's talk about what did, we always say that the message we're supposed to get, because they're always trying to send a message when they have these settlements. They don't do enforcement action like a lot of other entities. They want you to follow the rules. They're hoping for compliance. So what did our OCR director have to say about this one, David?
Had to say a lot, actually. But she started with, our settlement highlights how ransomware attacks are increasingly common and targeting the healthcare system. That's true. This leaves hospitals and their patients vulnerable to data and security breaches. In this ever-evolving space, it is critical that our healthcare system takes steps to identify and address cybersecurity vulnerabilities, along with proactively and regularly review risks. records, and update policies. Now listen, these practices should happen regularly across an enterprise to prevent future attacks. Indeed.
That's why I get people's attention with my new whole process. That's what we do. You know what Cardin does? We treat privacy and security like a chronic condition you treat, not a project you complete, which is what you've seen it as before.
Regularly.
Our assessments evaluate where you are. We create a treatment plan, provide those support services and technology guidance on what to use, and understand what's happening around you and how to document and prove you're actually doing it. And then, of course, our support group at the Cardin Club.
Yeah. So is one of your questions that you ask people is, are you regular?
I don't use that particular chronic condition. I tend to go towards diabetes because most people can deal with that regardless of their specialty. Let's just go with that. But, I mean, that is exactly what we're saying is this is something you have to be every day. And we were just at the Southeastern Association of Orthopedic Executives conference. And I'm talking with folks and I'm like, you know, and I've given them that, you know, we've built this so that it is treating that chronic condition. That's what we have are those tools. And we're that specialist that you go to learn how to do and manage all this stuff. And the number of times I would say they would be like, well, I'll ask IT about it. And I'm like, no, you need to realize you're on the cybersecurity team too. And the look. And you would see, like, usually there's a group of people and they'd all look at each other like, holy crap, I hadn't thought of that. You know? And they would say, yeah, we all are.
Yeah, absolutely they are. But it's, you know, the other part of all the breach stuff in general, I just participated in an OCR webinar earlier this week. And one thing that was interesting, and maybe we'll bring it up in another episode, was that the number of breaches because of theft and lost devices has gone down tremendously. But you know what's taken its place? Hacking incidents, believe it or not, which this falls into. The other one is breach servers have went way up. And I think that's because people are going to the cloud. They're going to cloud servers and things like that. And the prevailing thought, at least in my experience, is that people say, well, I'm taking this to the cloud, so I don't need IT anymore, or I don't need security anymore. Or my IT vendor doesn't understand this particular cloud thing. And so it's not configured properly. So there's you're shifting the security and the support and the maintenance and the monitoring and the management. You're just shifting all that from on premise to the cloud. You're not doing away with it. The only thing you're doing away with is the infrastructure, the hardware you're having to buy. But I see that often, especially in MSP circles where they're talking about it. Somebody is getting rid of their physical server, they're going to the cloud, and they no longer want the IT support and security and all that because they think they've got it all encompassed in this cloud platform. And it's just not the way that works.
Well, and I mean, there was an IT guy talking about, well, we do this. And it's some cool stuff they're doing. I think it's great that they're able to do with tools like the Azure cloud and, you know, virtual desktops and all of that. It's great stuff. And he sales guy, and he's like, yeah, it's 100% secure. And I said,
You don't ever say that.
And immediately he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. It never is 100%. Nothing's, but we're pretty close." No. So,
well, the other thing too is like, okay, great, you're quote unquote secure. However, we're not looking at this from a security standpoint. We're looking at this from a risk standpoint.
Yeah.
Because you can still be 100% secure and still have a risk that causes you to have a data breach.
Exactly. So we are doing risk management, chronic condition management. So, this 3-year corrective action plan addresses not only our HIPAA brief about BAs do have to know what to do, but also about our message about a risk analysis is not just a scan.
Yeah.
I had somebody specifically ask me about doing IT asset management. I had Check Your Cyber Pulse there at the booth. We were going through it, and they saw this IT asset management thing. Well, how do you do that? And I was like, well, it's asset management like any other asset management. You keep up with your stuff. But where most people think, oh, I'll just ask IT to tell me about the computers, that's asset management. No, that's a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody needs to account for your mobile devices, your access points, your firewalls, your routers, all of those kinds of things, your copier printers. They can sit in on a printer that has a default username, password. They can just hop on there and watch what happens.
Yeah. Well, the other piece of asset management in particular is, I can run a report and say, here's your assets, but I don't know where they're at. You can take them and move them around, or you can do whatever you want to with them. The only thing I can tell you is they're connected. I have no idea what you've done with them.
Could be in Hong Kong. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we've had quote unquote asset management meetings with somebody, and it's like, somebody's using this laptop, but where is it? And next thing you know, in this particular case, it was in the closet of an employee's home. I don't know how that got there. I'm like, I think you might have got caught trying to steal a laptop.
Well, and I had one where the group moved from point A to point B into a new building, right? And the IT folks went over, they accounted for everything. They took it over here to the new office. They accounted for everything, and they insisted this one computer that was the only computer that connected to this one thing, and it was gone, and it had been lost. And both sides said no. IT's like, we checked it off. It got into your building. No, it's not here. We've looked. It's not here. And this battle was going on, and I get called into it because, who else will you call if you think you've lost an asset? But I get all the data, and the thing is, they could account for it checking in with the domain server at the new IP.
Well, then it's there.
That's what I said. And they're like, we've looked for it everywhere. We can't find it. We even sent one of our guys. I told the IT guy that was like the head of the group, I said, you go over there and you do not leave. And you know where they found it? Under the table in the administrator's office.
Yep.
We looked everywhere. So it is important, and they specifically say, prior to updating their risk analysis, which of course they're going to need to do because that's step one in all of these kinds of data breach settlements, DMS shall develop a complete inventory of all of its facilities, electronic equipment, data systems, and applications that contain or store EPHI that will then be incorporated into the risk analysis. DMS shall provide documentation supporting a review of current security measures and level of risk to its EPHI associated with the following: network segmentation, network infrastructure, vulnerability scanning, logging and alerts, and patch management. That's a whole new way to phrase it.
Yeah. So the question to ask yourself then is, do you have the ability in your organization to review the security measures that you have on network segmentation, network infrastructure, vulnerability scanning, logging and alerts, and patch management?
Exactly. And guess what? All of that is HICCUP guidelines.
Yep.
If you're doing recognized security practices, you have to prove it, and you could prove all of those things. This is why recognized security practices, really, you should all do it. But then for those of you who think that BAs should only worry about the security rule, I did want to point out this one thing here. Let's get back to business associates not understanding fully what it is they're responsible for. They shall review and revise if necessary. They're giving them a break here. We're not saying you don't have them. We're just saying if you need to, now would be the time. It's written policies and procedures to comply with the federal standards that govern the security standards for the protection of EPHI, and then it lists out 45 CFR parts 160 and 164, subparts A, C, and E, the privacy and security rules. Now, the thing is, that's more than just the privacy section and the security section.
What else is it, Donna?
It includes the general rules, which people often don't even know that 160. Most people only look at the 164.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a person that is a security rule person, you really don't even pay attention to 160, and it's a key element. There are some pertinent things you should use. Number one. Number two is A is the security rule, and E is the privacy rule. What's C?
The breach notification rule.
How about that? So when I say, 164, 40, 314, blah, 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 that is, at least for the folks that have to sit through the boot camp, and we say, you need to know how to read the law. Here's why. Here's why. So I think for those who have no idea about the differences and how big the HIPAA rules are, I always defer to a friend who says that the HIPAA is huge, and technology people take care of this tiny bit, and Cardin helps administer a bigger bit, and I'm like, Cardin doesn't even do all of it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't air. It's not just our thing, but you got the enforcement rule that's in there, data breach notification requirements, all of that stuff. If you're not aware of it, yet you're responsible for it, things are not going to go well for you. At least that's what I think you might want to consider.
Well, other things to consider, according to OCR, they recommend that healthcare providers, health plans, clearinghouses, and business associates that are covered under HIPAA to follow best practices to mitigate and prevent cyber threats. And here's the following that they say. So here's your warning. So the first one is you should review all your vendor and contract relationships. Make sure you have business associate agreements in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And address the breach security incident obligations. All right, here's number one. Number two, risk analysis and risk management should be integrated into the business processes, conducted regularly and when new technologies and business operations are planned. So the folks that say, I did a risk analysis 3 years ago, if that's true, that means that you have not done anything technology related to add any new technology, any new business operations, any new business associates. You've not done anything in that amount of time, and probably not even done business. In other words, there's no reason why you should not be doing these regularly. There's that word again, regularly.
Yeah, that gets harder every time you have to say it, doesn't it?
It does. So just often, just do it.
Regularly.
Ensure that you audit controls. You have audit controls in place to record and examine information system activity.
That's because of that one whole year and a half.
Yeah.
Being
So,
referenced.
But I can guarantee you I can't guarantee you, but there were probably things that were screaming at them for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And they, nobody's looking at any of the audit logs, so they didn't see it.
Well, and that could be a big part of it is, don't you often hear people think, well, IT's, and you'll even hear IT folks, our monitors will let us know. Wait a minute. If you're not looking at the monitoring alerts, are they going to let you know? Are they really? Really?
Well, they might let you know, but what are you doing with that? If you don't hear the tree fall, did it make a sound? The next piece is implement a regular review of your information systems activity, which kind of goes back into it. So the first one is make sure that you actually are recording the activity. And secondly, make sure you're reviewing it. Because we have seen where it's like, pull the logs. And somebody, we don't have any.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
None. All we have is the last, 100 meg. What?
Yeah. Utilize MFA, multi-factor authentication, to ensure only authorized users are accessing EPHI. So say this often, but MFA should be activated everywhere that you have the ability to do it.
Yes.
Put it on everything. Put that on everything.
Anything, at least do it on the things that are important.
Yep. Encrypt EPHI to guard against unauthorized access to EPHI. So we've gotten whole episodes on encryption. So you may want to look back at some of those because that's a big conversation. Next one, incorporate lessons learned from incidents into overall security management process. I would say don't just wait for the lessons to be learned for incidents that happened in your environment, but maybe learn from the lessons of others.
That is a big thing that we say often, isn't it?
Yep.
Learn from others. You don't want to be the one to learn. I mean, you could choose to. I gave my siblings that same thing. Look, I cut a trail so wide, y'all could have just wandered right through it and not gotten in any trouble, but y'all had to go off and make your own. That's on you. That is on you.
Yep. Big reason we go over all these settlements is the lessons learned are in here. So we're giving you that information. And then lastly, provide training specific to organization and job responsibilities and on a regular basis. Reinforce the workforce members' critical role in protecting privacy and security because everybody is on the cybersecurity team.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
You know what I realized? When we were talking about A, B, C's, and D's, I got them backwards. But, hey, at least I recognize it. So, I know I'm doing something wrong. I'm going to go back. I'm going to do it right. Because I don't ever want to say, we get caught doing it wrong. All right. So, D is the breach notification rule. It's not included in your policies and procedures requirement. However, in security rule and privacy rule, you have to manage what is a breach. And the only way to do that is to reference the breach rule, which is also referenced in the general provisions under Part 160. So 160 and 164, just do it. Just do it. Because they had to report a breach. I'm just saying. I got them backwards. Name it and claim it.
It's okay.
Yeah. We fixed that.
All right. So now that we fixed it, and I'm sure somebody will still point out that it was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. If you knew what I'd been through the last few weeks, you'd be proud I'm sitting here.
We could edit it and you'd never know, but.
Yeah. Anyhow.
So, okay, back to ransomware. So if you don't think it's a big problem, then you certainly hadn't been watching the latest updates about things targeting healthcare because it's a massive problem.
And we're running into the end of the year where it gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth quarter is a huge ransomware during the holidays. You got everybody distracted by that. You got everybody distracted by, in the U.S., now you're in winter and, it becomes flu season. That distracts people. You got all of the end of year things that businesses are doing, and they take advantage of that big time.
Maybe they dropped the bomb on Christmas Eve because they knew that it may take a little bit longer to have all the encryption happen across the organization. So it gives them more time before somebody can try to, pull plugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's a good reason to do it. So they didn't get breached on that day, but that's when the bomb goes off for the ransomware. And then potentially you've got 2 or 3 days for everything to kind of run. And that way you're good to go. So when you walk in that Monday morning for Cyber Monday, nobody can shop.
Yeah, that'd be it. So you got left a boom lurk time. So where is boom? The beginning when they first got in, but usually it's when you discover it. There's your boom.
Mm-hmm.
Right a boom, everything depends on how left a boom went.
Yeah.
But HC3, the Health Sector Coordinating Council, no, that's HSCC. You know what I'm saying, David. I'm overwhelmed
tell
with
me.
all of this. Yeah, it's the HHS cybersecurity people.
Health Sector Cybersecurity Coordination Center.
Health Sector Cybersecurity Coordination. See, there's just so many.
No.
So, but they put out alerts, and just in the last 30 days, we've gotten one that was really probably more related to it being Cybersecurity Awareness Month, AI augmented phishing and the threat to the health sector. Because now's when they're coming in. Mm-hmm. Now's when they're tricking your people to loading things that they're going to use. But then 2 different ransomware alerts.
Yep.
And that's just been in the last 2 weeks, targeting healthcare, and one of them targeting small and medium business specifically on top of everything else.
Yeah, because you're too small to do anything.
Yeah, they don't want this. But we have 2 different ones. There's the first one came out October 12th, so in the middle of it. But these reports have nothing to do. This specific one is, hey, look what we found. And this is a relatively new threat actor using the No Escape ransomware. They came out May 2023. They think it's, like we always say, if they start to shut some of them down, they shut down that thing and create a new one, and they think this is just one of those older groups reinventing itself, but it is ransomware as a service.
Yeah. And there was a recent, we didn't cover this, but there was a recent announcement about a new framework for ransomware as a service that integrates AI, and they're talking about how it basically just goes around most antivirus programs, which is again why we always say you need to have defense in depth, have more than one way you're protecting yourself. So that's people, processes, and technology. You can't just throw one off the shelf antivirus software or malware software at something and then hope that you're going to be very well protected.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. And the same thing with this other ransomware, 8base, which they became highly active in the summer of 2023, focusing their indiscriminate targeting on multiple sectors, primarily across the United States. But in both of these cases, they're double extortion.
Yep. Yeah, this one is not a ransomware operation as much as it's a data extortion cyber crime operation. So, yeah, and like you said, they do double extortion. So, man.
Yeah, so they are definitely stealing your data. And who knows what else they're going to start doing to force people to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're part of paying attention to these things, at least you can have those conversations in your office and say, hey, this is out here, and make people more aware that those things, you're being targeted right now. And getting that attention across to people, then that's hugely important. So that brings us to all of the things that made this particular news release. The press release are usually short and sweet. But because this was ransomware, and ransomware is such a big problem, then they added a ton of this information, like what we've already been through, and links out the wazoo, as one would say. But we also want to highlight that our 405D group and Hiccup, what does Hiccup say ransomware might be considered, David?
Might be considered one of the threats.
One of the top 5 threats we must face.
That's right. I would say it is.
Yeah. And they, within our Hiccup guidelines, there are specific things that we say doing these directly impacts the protections against ransomware and the extent that ransomware can cause trouble.
Yep.
Go with it, David.
So here's a sample of some of the protections and recommendations from Hiccup. Now, I want to go ahead and say, you're not going to hear me say anything about having antivirus software.
Correct. We need anti-malware, yes, but...
Yeah. So here we go. Number 1, enable MFA, which we talked about. Number 2, phishing awareness training. All right. Yes. Number 3, secure your email system. Now, this is different than buying the antivirus or anti-malware on your computer. This is actually inside of your email system. What are you doing to secure that? So if the malware never gets to your end user, you don't have to worry about anything happening. So get that taken care of. A lot of people I know don't have security actually inside of their email system. So secure your email system. Next is user management. Okay. So your identity and access management. Who has access to what?
And only what they need.
Right. And should they have access to those things? Ensure your endpoints are patched. Oh. Restrict inbound internet access. Now,
when they say that, what are we talking about? We're not saying don't let people have internet access. We're saying control what kind of internet access can happen.
Right. So, the amount of connectivity to only those services that are needed to be exposed to the internet. So you can look at things like, for example, like we block RDP ports. So, which, you can get around it. But by default, we block the typical RDP ports that might be used. So we want to make it as difficult as we can. But that's just a good rule of thumb, because in some cases it's not necessarily the hackers I'm trying to keep out. It's the shadow IT folks that are like, sure, I can work from home. All I have to do is turn this remote desktop thing on and go home and then use it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I remember years ago, it was like, yeah, there's this free tool called VNC. You just put it on there and then you can work remotely. And so that was a problem. Next, restrict. I already said that one. Establish data backup. Now, let me add to that. Donna, you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
You want to establish data recovery. Because if you have recovery, you have a backup.
You can have a backup, but not recovery.
Right. But you can't have a recovery without a backup. So let's not focus on backup. Let's focus on recovery.
Definitely.
And then lastly, establish an instant response process.
Yes. And they make a point, or we make a point, or the industry guidelines are to have a large scale response, not, hey, call David. That is not a response plan.
No, please don't let that be your response plan.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I'm going to ask you is, well, what is your response plan? Let's pull it out and see it.
Yeah. Who else you going to call? Because I'm calling Donna if you ain't calling anybody else.
That's right. And she's going to ask the same question. Well, let's see your response plan.
Let's see your response plan. So That is a key element always. Because this is one of the other things I came up with this weekend as I'm having these conversations. I'm like, the fastest way to ensure you lose the most money in a single click is to not have a plan for that single click.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. And to help you out even further, we did provide a link in the show notes to the ransomware fact sheet that OCR put out way back in 2016. Mm-hmm. So if you think ransomware is a new thing, or if you think it's an old thing that doesn't actually happen anymore, in both cases, you're wrong. And then 405D put out some resources on ransomware, and we've got some links to those as well. However, I will say, for you 405D folks that are listening, one of them says, prepare, react, and recover. I wish you would have said prepare, respond, and recover. Because I think of reacting as like unprepared response, right? Yeah. Unplanned response. That's a reaction. Like when you hit me in my knee and my leg goes flying up. It's like, I'm not prepared for that. And therefore that's what happens.
Well, it's being prepared how to react, David. The whole point is you're not wandering through the haunted house. You actually know where the things are, the scary things.
But it's like, how many times do we say, like, don't be reactive. Have a response plan.
So be proactive, not reactive. But it doesn't say.
Yeah, that, so I don't know why they use it. And this was put out in conjunction with the HC3. Matter of fact, I think HC3 probably spearheaded this. So it's not coming from our group specifically. This is coming from HC3, and 405D has their hand in it. But that just goes to show how you can have different factions that are in cybersecurity all putting out great content, but there's sometimes different wording. Like the 405D folks, we would not have put react on this.
Well, at some point somebody did, or it wouldn't have our sticker on it. But you and I wouldn't, and a lot of times in these conversations, you and I will say that, and we'll be turned down. But that particular guidance is a very valuable one. The prepare, react, recover one, strongly recommend you pull it out, because in each of those lines, it says if you're a general user or medical practitioner, here's the things you should do to prepare, react, and recover. Then there's a column for cyber IT professionals, and then a column for emergency managers. And somebody's going to need to do all of those in those cases. So if you pull that, it's a great thing to pull and be able to say, okay, I at least have a clue what kinds of things I need to be prepared for so that I have a response plan. I'm not just reacting at the last minute.
That's right. Yeah, it is a good document. The one I like the most is up under the recovery phase for your general users and medical practitioners. It says, take care not to reinfect the clean systems during your recovery process.
No, right? That's my other thing is if it can connect, it can infect. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's like the client who's got a ransomware thing going on. And so they run to the nearest big box store, grab a new desktop, come in, plug it in so they can be back up and going. And it just gets infected.
Yes.
I was like, no, that's not the way that works. You can't do that. But good try. Good try.
Yeah. Gotta go with what you got.
Yep. Well, there you go, folks. Thanks for joining us as you hear history being made with our first OCR ransomware settlement.
You're funny.
I know. So thanks for listening again. Make sure you follow us, share us out on your favorite social media site. Give us a rating and review. We appreciate it. And remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.